Hi and welcome to In the Chair. I'm Brenton Garen, your Executive Editor of Westside Today. I'm joined by Congresswoman Karen Bass, who represents the 37th District, which includes parts of West LA, we've got Culver City, Century City, and neighborhoods in South Los Angeles. So thanks for coming in today.
I always say it's from USC to UCLA.
I know it's definitely a big area, but we're glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
You were elected to Congress after 6 years in the State Assembly from 2004 to 2010. Can you share a little bit about what your life is like now on Capitol Hill?
Well, actually, I'm doing the same commute. I used to live in LA over the weekend and travel to Sacramento, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm in DC during the week and in LA on the weekend. And, you know, it was very helpful being in the legislature, but being on the Hill, it's just 10 times as big. And also you're dealing with issues around the world, and so it's very exciting.
Yeah.
You do feel like you're in the center of the world.
Can you share like an average week when you are in DC?
Sure. An average week starts very early in the morning at around 6 o'clock because I have to make sure that I read all the news before I go into work, because any event that's happening in the world can impact me when I go in the office. And typically we have hearings. I serve on the Judiciary Committee as well as the Foreign Affairs Committee, so needless to say, anything that's happening in the world could lead to a hearing or a meeting that we're having regarding that. And on the Judiciary Committee, very important to our district, is the entertainment industry, and so I serve on the Intellectual Property Subcommittee, which deals with copyright and piracy and a lot of issues like that. In addition, I focus on child welfare, foster care, as well as criminal justice reform, so lots of issues.
And then you have staff on both coasts. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. I have two offices. My DC office, of course, is in the Capitol. My LA office is on the corner of Wilshire and Highland. And in the district, we do a lot of things. We have a lot of community meetings, we have big town halls, and now this session we're doing a series of community and neighborhood conversations where we will essentially mail to about a couple of thousand people in every neighborhood in the district and just invite people to talk with me. So we're going to be in Century City and Brentwood and West LA, the Cheviot Hills area very soon.
Can you talk about some of the things that people want to talk about when they come
Sure.
to these meetings?
Well, we just had one a couple of weeks ago, and I will tell you, prior to this week in Congress, a big issue were the trade agreements, whether or not Congress was going to grant the president the Trade Promotion Authority, which gives him the authority to negotiate trade agreements, and then Congress only has the ability to either vote yay or nay for the trade bill. So that was, I would say, one of the biggest issues. The other big issue in the meeting that we had just last weekend was about affordable housing, because there's gentrification taking place in one of the areas in the district, and a lot of apartment renters feel like they're being kicked out so that higher paying tenants can be moved in.
So what do you think can be done to sort of stop that from happening?
Well, you know, I will tell you that one of the things that happens in almost every neighborhood meeting is it's an opportunity to have a civics lesson, because the average person is not necessarily paying attention to which level of government their issue is impacted by. And so an issue like housing, of course, is a local issue. But there is a federal piece to it, because there's HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and this group of tenants that were meeting with me have Section 8 vouchers, which of course originate federally. So it's an opportunity for me to explain the different levels of government. And then fortunately, I do have good ties with all of the elected officials. So I might leave a meeting and then call my colleague who's on the city council and say, these are issues that came up. They're actually in your domain, but I want to bring your attention to it. And then we figure out how we work together and solve the problem.
Fantastic. Well, since joining Congress, you have sponsored a number of legislation, and there is a long list on your website where people can read about it. But what are some of the most, I guess, important, close to your heart pieces that you've been involved with?
Well, two of them that were just recently signed by the president. One is a big package of bills that we did on sex trafficking, because I think that's an issue that people think of as being an international issue, but a lot of people didn't realize that our girls, 12 years old is the average age, are being pulled into sex trafficking. They're being coerced, tricked, etc. And then a percentage of the girls are actually girls in the foster care system. And so child welfare is an issue that I work on a lot. And so we sent the president a package of bills related to sex trafficking. A couple of the bills did focus on girls in the child welfare system, so that was one that was close to my heart. And then just yesterday, the president signed a piece of legislation I had been working on for the last 3.5 years, and that's an international issue, and it's a trade agreement between the United States and the 54 nations of Africa. So those are two pieces close to my heart that were just signed by the president.
Fantastic. Well, one of the big issues on the west side is the future of Santa Monica Airport and sort of the future and where it's going to go. So on July 8, you and fellow colleague Congressman Ted Lieu will be meeting with FAA officials to sort of discuss your opinions and views. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, you know, my primary responsibility being in Congress is to represent my constituents. And Ted and I share that geographic area. So I don't represent the airport, but I represent the neighborhood that's impacted by the airport. And after a number of years, numerous meetings with the residents, I know that they want to see the airport closed. And so the meeting that we're bringing together is with some of the residents from the area. We'll be flying to D.C. They feel basically that their voices haven't been heard. And so my job and the job of Congressman Lieu is to bring the people in Washington who are the decision makers to meet directly with our constituents. So whether or not the airport should be renewed is an issue, the flight patterns are an issue, and then of course there are people on the other side who are okay with the airport. They might want some changes, but they don't necessarily want to have it closed.
Mm-hmm. And then are there any other big hot topic issues that are ongoing in the community that you're sort of always working with to try and help residents?
I would say one of the number one issues is jobs. Mm-hmm. You know, if you look at the district from USC to UCLA, and I do represent USC, I don't represent UCLA, but I do represent the neighborhoods around, you know, there's part of the district that is lower income, has bigger challenges. And so jobs is the number one issue there. So you have a part of the district that's relatively affluent and part of the district that isn't. Mm-hmm. And so one of the pieces of legislation I also succeeded in doing was a bill that would allow the county and the city to give preferences to people who live in the area as we're building all of these major transportation projects. Now, who would have thought that there is a restriction of using federal money and prioritizing people that live in the area? Mm-hmm. And so we were able, it's called the local hire ordinance, and we were able to get that done. And we need to have it continued because it was done temporarily, but it's led to billions of dollars being targeted to neighborhoods with preferences given to people that live in the area.
Mm-hmm. And finally, when it comes to Congress, they're obviously 2-year terms, and your
yes.
current term...
Every other year we have to run.
I know, so that's obviously coming up next year, the presidential election as well. Have you given much thought of sort of how long-term you want to be in politics if re-elected?
Well, I'm in politics is my lifelong passion, but I look at politics different. To me, it's not just about running for office. I've been involved in politics and community issues really since I was in middle school. So it's a lifelong passion and commitment that I make. How long I will stay in Congress, I don't know, as long as the voters have me. However, there are very specific issues that I'm trying to work on, and when those are resolved, and one is the transformation of the child welfare system, addressing mass incarceration, looking at issues that I think are really important to our community. When I feel like I've been able to actually bring about the change that I'm committed to and are my goals in office, then I will look at what happens now. I certainly don't want to be there the rest of my life. Some of my colleagues are quite elderly, but I will tell you it's not an age thing, because there's one colleague, Charles Rangel, who is, you know, an icon in our country. You know, we celebrated his 85th birthday last week, and I will tell you he has as much energy and is as sharp as you or I. So, you know, to me, we will see. But I'm there very much goal-driven, very much focused on what I want to accomplish and what I feel helps the district. And when I've been able to make a significant headway, then I'll look at maybe seeing what happens after that.
Fantastic. Well, Karen, we appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. We'll be back next week, so don't forget to check out westsidetoday.com to see who's in the chair. I'm Brenton Garen for Westside TV.